She taunted the tales of human bravery, then watched a legend come alive. As an alien historian from the star system of Xiphora, her life had been spent studying civilizations, learning their ways, and cataloging their histories. To her, the galaxy was a vast library, each species a book with clear, predictable lines. But there was one civilization that amused her more than any other: humans. She remembered the first time she had read about them in the old archives of the Galactic Council. Humans, the texts claimed, had performed incredible acts of bravery. They had faced predators larger than their cities, navigated impossible dangers, and survived against overwhelming odds. Yet, when Valeth considered their physical form, small, fragile, and seemingly ordinary, she could not help but laugh. How could a species so unremarkable, she thought, possibly achieve such things? In her lectures at Xiphora University, she often challenged students with the question: why do we praise beings that are statistically weaker than every other intelligent species? Why do we call them brave? Most students agreed with her. The stories sounded like myths, tales exaggerated over generations to inspire courage where none existed. Now, centuries later, Valeth had the chance to observe humans in person. Her assignment was simple: study a small human outpost in a remote region of the galaxy and write a report on their behavior. She expected boredom. A quiet settlement, a handful of humans, perhaps some curious pets or minor technology, nothing extraordinary. When she first arrived in orbit above Outpost Meridian, Valeth's sensors picked up the usual signs: small structures, low population, and modest energy output. Yet even from a distance, she noticed something odd. Unlike other species, the humans did not appear alarmed or restless. They moved with purpose, not haste. They were preparing but not panicking. Valeth raised an antenna in mock salute. "So much for the so-called brave humans," she murmured to herself. "I expected chaos, not order. I expected fear, not this calm." She decided to descend in her observation vessel, cloaking it so that the humans would not see her. From her vantage point, she could watch without interference. The settlement was small, consisting of a few dozen buildings arranged in a circle, with a central hub that appeared to serve as a gathering place. Humans moved between buildings carrying supplies, tending to gardens, and checking machinery. Children ran freely in open spaces, supervised by adults who smiled but never shouted. The scene was ordinary, almost peaceful. Valeth felt a flicker of irritation. Where was the excitement, the drama, the danger she had expected? She leaned closer to her viewing panel, scrutinizing the humans. One young man carried a heavy container of water across uneven terrain. A group of women repaired a small energy generator. Each person worked silently, efficiently, without complaint. "They are not brave," she muttered. "They are merely stubborn." But as the hours passed, Valeth began to notice subtle differences. These humans did not quarrel or compete aggressively for resources as most species did. They shared, coordinated, and helped each other even when it slowed their own work. One elderly human stumbled while carrying a crate, and two younger humans immediately ran to assist him. Not because it was required by law, not because of hierarchy, but simply because it seemed right to do so. Valeth adjusted her sensors. Was this discipline? No, it was something different, something she could not name. She frowned, her curiosity sharpening. Perhaps these humans had a method of social structure unlike any she had seen, a method that allowed them to survive in ways her data could not explain. Her thoughts were interrupted by a loud announcement from the central hub. Humans gathered quickly, forming neat lines as a few leaders spoke. Valeth's translators picked up the words: "Cosmic storm incoming. Prepare the shielding. Protect the crops. Protect the outpost. Protect each other." A storm. In this region of space, storms of energy and radiation were common, but typically species of this sector abandoned their settlements at the first warning. Many aliens were nomadic, fleeing before danger arrived. Yet these humans, they prepared. They did not panic, nor did they evacuate. Valeth leaned back, astonished. "They actually intend to face it?" she whispered. Her tone was incredulous. This went beyond stubbornness. This was audacity. As the humans worked, Valeth noticed something else. Their tools were simple but clever. They did not rely on brute force technology or overwhelming energy. Instead, they combined small machines with ingenuity, setting up protective barriers, securing energy sources, and organizing food supplies. Every action seemed thought through, every movement deliberate. One human, a woman with graying hair, climbed a small observation tower. She signaled to others, pointing at the horizon. Valith observed the signal carefully. The humans were not just waiting, they were coordinating, planning, predicting the storm's path. Valith's mind raced. She had studied thousands of species, from the towering Lithrans to the hive-minded Valorians, but she had never seen anything like this. Most species fled danger immediately or froze in panic. Humans, however, faced it head-on, calmly and collectively. And then she heard the stories they told one another. Even in her translation, she could sense the pride and caution in their voices. They spoke of their ancestors, not as gods or heroes, but as ordinary humans who had acted bravely when it was necessary. Each tale was a lesson, not a boast. A story about helping neighbors, about standing firm when it was easier to run. Valith could feel the irritation she often felt when reading myths creeping back. She could not deny the patterns she was observing. Humans were different. Their bravery did not roar, it whispered. It was quiet, steady, and enduring. The storm arrived slowly, a glowing mass of energy drifting across the stars. Valith watched from orbit as the humans continued their preparations. Energy shields hummed, wind barriers rose, and food stores were secured. The cosmic storm would not spare them, yet they did not despair. Valith found herself oddly drawn to the humans' calm determination. She had come to ridicule them, to catalog their expected failure. Instead, she watched them face a threat that would terrify most species, and she realized she was witnessing something remarkable. And then, the first wave of the storm hit. Bright streaks of energy tore across the horizon. Other settlements in nearby systems went dark. Panic rippled through the sensors of fleeing species. But here in Outpost Meridian, humans moved like one organism. They adjusted shields, reinforced structures, and helped each other across unstable ground. Valith's jaw tightened. She had never expected to feel awe. Her mind, trained for logic and data, struggled to explain what she was witnessing. Every human was small, fragile, and ordinary by physical standards. Yet together they had become something far greater. For hours, she observed. Night fell over the outpost, but the humans did not stop. They took shifts, resting briefly, then returning to their duties. Some sang quietly, songs of old legends meant to inspire courage. Valith listened to the melodies, understanding them as formulas of hope. By the time the storm subsided, the outpost was battered but intact. Humans helped each other repair damage, celebrated quietly, and prepared for the next wave. Valith floated in her observation vessel, speechless. This was not the foolish, exaggerated bravery she had expected. This was real, this was human bravery, alive and unyielding. And Valith felt a chill of realization. She had arrived as a skeptic, a critic of legend, but she could no longer dismiss the tales. She could not yet understand the full depth of it, but she knew one thing. She would never look at humans the same way again. As the outpost settled into quiet routine, Valith's sensors recorded every action, every word, and every moment of human resolve. She had come to mock myths, but she had witnessed the first stirrings of a legend, and somewhere deep inside she felt the faintest spark of admiration. Valith whispered to herself, almost shyly, perhaps the stories were not lies after all. With that, she prepared to report back to the Galactic Council. But even as she wrote the first lines of her report, she knew her words would be cautious, brave, honest, because the humans had shown her something the galaxy had long forgotten. Courage does not always roar. Sometimes it simply stands. The storm had passed, leaving Outpost Meridian battered but standing. Small clouds of dust floated across the settlement as humans emerged from their shelters. Valith continued to observe from her vessel, cloaked so that no human could see her. She expected exhaustion, despair, or fear. What she found instead was something she could not have predicted. Humans moving quietly, carefully, and with purpose. Children who had been frightened moments before now ran to help clear debris. Adults inspected structures, measured damages, and organized supplies. The humans did not complain, shout, or panic. They worked. They worked as if each action mattered, but no single action was more important than another. Valith tilted her head. Orderly, efficient, and calm. Incredible, she murmured. She had studied countless species reacting to disasters, and almost all of them had crumbled under stress. Yet here, humans moved like they had rehearsed this scenario 1,000 times. She focused her sensors on the outpost leaders who were coordinating repairs. Their movements were precise. Instructions were given and followed immediately, but without the need for hierarchy or fear. Valith recognized the pattern. This was not obedience, it was trust, and it was voluntary. Humans had an unspoken understanding, a shared sense of responsibility that she could not easily quantify. Hours passed, and the alien historian continued to watch. Slowly, Valith began to notice the subtle ways humans ensured each other's safety. A small team worked to stabilize a collapsed power generator. When one man began lifting a heavy panel, another rushed to help. They exchanged no words, only gestures. Every action was careful, deliberate, and coordinated. Valith's curiosity deepened. She had come expecting myth and legend, expecting stories inflated by emotion and exaggeration. Instead, she found something far stranger, bravery that was quiet, efficient, and grounded in something she could not name. And then came the warning. Her sensors picked up a massive energy spike approaching from the edge of the system. The readings were irregular, unstable, and unlike any natural phenomenon she had ever encountered. It was a cosmic disturbance, a massive anomaly that could disrupt entire star systems if left unchecked. Valith felt a familiar thrill of anticipation. This was why she had studied humans. She had expected panic. She had expected chaos. She had expected humans to flee, but instead she saw them gather in the central hub. Their leader, a woman named Amara, addressed the group with calm authority. "Energy readings are rising," Amara said. "The anomaly will reach our system within hours. We will secure the outpost. We will protect each other. We will do what we must." Valith's translator captured the words, but she noticed something else. There was no fear in the human's tone. No hysteria, no complaint, just determination. The historian felt a strange, unfamiliar sensation, something akin to respect, though she did not wish to admit it. For hours, the humans prepared. Shields were reinforced, supplies were organized, and protective barriers were erected. Valith watched them move, thinking she understood efficiency. She had not understood this. Every action was calculated, but each action also carried a quiet bravery, the bravery of choosing to act in the face of danger rather than running from it. Valith decided to get closer. She lowered her vessel into the upper atmosphere of the planet, careful to remain unseen. From this vantage, she could see even more details. One human, a young man named Terran, carried water across uneven terrain, balancing it carefully so that no drop was lost. Another, a woman named Lena, inspected solar panels, repairing them with precision. A group of children gathered debris for later use, carefully avoiding the areas where adults were working. Even the animals, small dogs and cats, seemed aware of the tension, staying close to their human companions. Valith's mind raced. These humans were ordinary. Physically weak by her standards, limited in technology compared to most galactic species, and yet, they worked together with a harmony she had never witnessed. Each human action built upon another, creating a network of efficiency and resilience. As night fell over the outpost, the humans did not stop. They took shifts, resting briefly before returning to their duties. Valith's sensors recorded the meticulous patterns of activity. Every human had a role, every role mattered, and every action contributed to a greater plan. The alien historian felt something she had not felt in centuries: uncertainty. What if humans could survive the approaching anomaly? What if their so-called weakness was, in fact, a strength? Valith shook her head, trying to dismiss the thought. It was impossible, she told herself. Humans were fragile. They could not endure forces that would destroy entire cities and other civilizations. Yet, as she watched them continue to prepare, she realized she could not predict their actions. Their bravery was not loud or forceful. It was calm, methodical, and unwavering. Hours turned into the early morning. The first signs of the anomaly appeared in the sky, a glowing, shifting mass that cast strange shadows over the outpost. Nearby species fled, abandoning satellites and structures in panic. The outpost, however, remained. Humans adjusted shields, reinforced walls, and tended to one another. Valith felt a flicker of admiration she could not suppress. It was not fear she saw in humans. It was courage. Quiet courage, grounded in care, preparation, and unwavering resolve. A sudden gust of energy from the anomaly knocked over a small supply crate. A human child had been nearby, but two adults instantly intervened, pulling the child to safety and securing the crate before it could cause harm. The action was swift, efficient, and perfectly coordinated. Valeth realized this pattern repeated over and over. Humans protected one another not out of obligation, but out of instinct. For the first time, she began to understand the stories she had mocked. Humans were not brave because they sought glory. They were brave because they chose to act, even when fear was the easier option. As the anomaly drew closer, the humans continued their preparations. Valeth observed a council meeting of the outpost leaders. They discussed potential outcomes, calculated risks, and assigned responsibilities. Their conversation was calm, logical, and collaborative. "They are remarkable," Valeth whispered to herself, almost unwilling to admit it. "Even in danger, they are extraordinary." Suddenly, a communication signal blinked from a nearby monitoring station. Sensors indicated that the anomaly's energy waves were unpredictable, and the next surge could damage the outpost's shields. Valeth expected panic. She expected chaos. Instead, the humans calmly analyzed the data and adjusted their defenses. Valeth watched, fascinated, as each human moved with a combination of intelligence, skill, and bravery. The more she observed, the more she realized that bravery was not about size, strength, or weapons. It was about choice, the choice to face danger, protect others, and persist even when survival was uncertain. She felt a stirring of something unfamiliar, respect. She had mocked humans for centuries, calling their legends myths, exaggerations, and fairy tales. Now she saw a living example of what the stories had tried to capture. The anomaly continued to approach, its energy rippling across the sky in waves of light and shadow. Yet humans worked on, unaffected by fear, undeterred by danger, and united in purpose. Valeth realized that her own studies, her own knowledge, could not fully explain this behavior. Human bravery was not a formula, a calculation, or a predictable pattern. It was something deeper, something alive. Night deepened, and the outpost continued its preparations. Families huddled together for brief rest, children were cared for, and adults kept watch. The anomaly loomed ever closer, and the humans did not flinch. Valeth felt a chill of anticipation. The storm was coming, and when it arrived, it would test every human at Outpost Meridian. She had arrived to mock legends. Instead, she was about to witness them come alive. For the first time in centuries, she was uncertain about the outcome. And for the first time, she understood why humans were remembered as brave, not because they sought glory, but because they acted when it mattered most. And Valeth, hidden in her vessel above the planet, felt a strange, unspoken connection to these beings she had come to study. Perhaps bravery was not about who was strongest, fastest, or most powerful. Perhaps it was about something else entirely, something that humans had in abundance. Something that would soon be tested. The anomaly had grown larger, a swirling mass of energy and light, bending the stars themselves as it moved closer to Outpost Meridian. Valeth, observing from her vessel above the planet, felt a mixture of awe and disbelief. She had expected chaos, she had expected panic, but what she saw instead was something far stranger, calm determination. Humans were not running, they were preparing. In the central hub, the leaders moved with precision. Amara, the outpost's chief coordinator, pointed to a map projected in glowing lines. The anomaly's trajectory shifted constantly, unpredictable in its path. Yet the humans did not argue. They adapted. They recalculated. They acted. Taran, the young man Valeth had noticed before, ran to assist Lena, who had discovered a weak point in one of the shielding generators. Together, they carried heavy equipment across the uneven terrain, their movements synchronized, almost instinctive. Every human had a role, and every role mattered. Valeth leaned closer to her sensors. She had studied many species facing disaster. Most collapsed under fear, often causing more damage to themselves than the danger ever could. Yet these humans moved as though fear itself did not exist. It was not that they were unaware of danger. They clearly were, but they chose to act anyway. The first surge of the anomaly struck. A wave of energy swept across the outpost, sending dust, debris, and sparks into the air. Sensors on other planets nearby registered catastrophic failures. Entire settlements had been destroyed, their inhabitants lost to panic and confusion. But at Outpost Meridian, humans remained upright. Shields flared, bending and absorbing the energy. Taran stumbled under the force but was caught by Lena. A crate of vital supplies teetered dangerously, but two children ran forward to secure it. Valeth's sensors recorded every moment, and yet she struggled to understand what she was seeing. Humans were small, fragile. Ordinary, and yet they moved like a single organism, coordinated, calm, and unyielding. Amara's voice cut through the hub. "Adjust the shields, focus on the central barrier, protect the generator at all costs." Her words were clear but not loud. There was no panic, no desperation, just instruction, action, commitment. Valith found herself holding her breath. The next wave hit harder, tearing across the outpost with raw power. Energy fields flickered, walls groaned, and dust and debris swirled violently. One misstep could have been fatal. One moment of hesitation could have destroyed everything. Yet humans acted without hesitation. They repaired shielding systems as they were damaged, moved supplies before they could be lost, and guided each other away from danger. Children were instructed to remain in secure areas, yet they remained active participants, helping adults where possible. Even the animals instinctively moved with their human companions, staying close to safety. Valith could not deny it anymore. These humans were brave. Not reckless, not seeking glory. Brave in the most fundamental sense, they chose to face danger to protect others. The anomaly shifted again, brighter now, almost alive with energy. It swept across the terrain, striking structures and equipment. Alarms rang in the hub, yet the humans did not panic. They moved swiftly, addressing every failure as it appeared. In one critical moment, a generator began to fail, threatening the outpost's main energy shield. Taryn and Lena sprinted to stabilize it, carrying heavy tools under the crackling energy arcs. Sparks flew dangerously close, and the force of the anomaly knocked them off balance. But they steadied themselves, working together, until the generator hummed with renewed power. Valith's sensors picked up elevated heart rates, increased respiration, subtle physical stress. And yet the humans did not retreat. They did not freeze, they acted. "They are extraordinary," she whispered. Her voice was almost lost in the chaos outside, but she could not help herself. She had mocked humans for centuries, dismissed their legends as exaggeration, and yet she was witnessing something undeniable. The anomaly's energy surged again, this time striking the outpost's water reserves. Taryn dashed toward the storage units, carefully moving containers out of harm's way. Lena followed, stabilizing equipment that had shifted dangerously. Other humans assisted in forming human chains to secure essential supplies. Not a single action was wasted. Valith noticed how humans seemed to anticipate one another's movements. A gesture from one person was enough for another to respond. Their bravery was not just individual, it was collective. The courage of one human amplified the courage of others. Hours passed, and the anomaly's assault continued. Valith's data recorded every strike, every surge, every human action. And still, the humans adapted. They repaired damage immediately, reinforced weak points, and protected one another without hesitation. At one point, the anomaly created a temporary vacuum in the air above the settlement. Debris floated like weightless fragments, and the protective barriers flickered dangerously. A young child wandered too close to a weakened wall. Taryn, without thinking, leapt forward and pulled the child to safety. Lena stabilized the barrier just in time to prevent collapse. Valith felt something she had not felt in decades. Awe. She had expected fear, chaos, and defeat. She had expected humans to fail. Instead, she was witnessing courage that she could not fully explain. Even the animals played a role. Dogs carried small tools across unstable ground, and cats alerted humans to sudden dangers. The humans responded immediately, trusting their companions and coordinating their actions seamlessly. Amara's leadership remained calm, focused, and logical. She did not command with fear or authority, she guided with clarity and example. Her bravery was quiet but contagious. Humans followed her instructions, not because they had to, but because they chose to. As the anomaly's energy waves continued, Valith realized the full extent of what she had been observing. Humans were not powerful in the conventional sense. Their weapons were modest. Their technology was functional but not overwhelming. And yet they faced an unstoppable force and did not falter. The storm's energy began to concentrate above the outpost, forming a massive vortex that threatened to tear the settlement apart. Valith expected this moment to break them. She expected panic. She expected despair. But she was wrong. Humans moved with purpose. They reinforced the final barriers, secured every vulnerable area, and ensured that every person, every animal, and every essential supply was protected. The community acted as one, each individual's bravery reinforcing the next. The vortex struck. Energy surged violently, shaking the ground and sending debris flying. Alarms rang, sparks shot across machinery, and the outpost trembled as if it could be torn from the planet's surface. Yet humans held. They adapted. They repaired. They protected. And slowly, against impossible odds, the energy began to stabilize. The shields held. The structures remained intact. The supplies were safe. Every human was accounted for. Valeth floated above the settlement, stunned. She had witnessed countless civilizations fall in moments like this. She had studied species stronger, larger, and more technologically advanced than humans. And yet these ordinary beings, small, fragile, and underestimated, had faced a cosmic force and endured. For the first time, she understood why the legends had been told. Human bravery was not loud. It did not roar or boast. It was quiet, steady, and unwavering. It was a choice to act when it mattered most. As the energy of the anomaly began to fade, humans emerged from their shelters, tending to the wounded, repairing damage, and comforting one another. The storm had not broken them. It had revealed their true nature. Valeth recorded every detail, knowing that her report to the Galactic Council would be unlike anything she had ever written. Humans were not myths. Their courage was real. Their bravery was genuine, and the galaxy had underestimated them for far too long. She felt a strange mixture of humility and admiration. The legends she had once mocked were alive, unfolding before her eyes. And she realized something she had not admitted in centuries. Humans were extraordinary, not because they were the strongest. Not because they were the fastest. Not because they wielded the most advanced technology. But because they chose courage over fear, action over hesitation, and protection over self-preservation. And Valeth, observing in silent awe, knew that this was only the beginning. The humans of Outpost Meridian had survived the first strike of the anomaly. But the galaxy was full of challenges, and their bravery would be tested again. Yet she also knew that whatever came next, humanity would face it as they had faced this, together calmly and with courage that was quiet but unstoppable. For the first time in her career, Valeth felt a spark of hope, not just for the humans but for the galaxy itself. Because if these ordinary beings could endure something so extraordinary, perhaps legends were not exaggerations after all. Perhaps, in truth, humanity was a force that the galaxy had long forgotten. The storm had passed, leaving Outpost Meridian battered but unbroken. Dust and debris swirled gently in the wind, the air still thick with the scent of burnt machinery and ozone. The anomaly had moved on, but its effects lingered across the settlement. Valeth hovered silently above, her sensors capturing every detail. She had witnessed human bravery in action, but she now realized that understanding it fully would take time. The humans, however, wasted no time in rebuilding. The settlement hummed with activity. Adults moved efficiently, repairing walls, adjusting shielding, and tending to damaged energy conduits. Children helped wherever they could, carrying small tools, gathering debris, and assisting in clearing walkways. Even the animals, seemingly aware of the lingering danger, moved calmly among the humans, offering companionship and subtle assistance. Valeth noted the remarkable composure of the humans. Despite facing near destruction, no one panicked. There were no arguments, no blame, no chaos. Every action was purposeful, coordinated, and aimed at helping others. It was not simply survival instinct, it was something far more profound. Amara, the leader of the outpost, moved among her people, guiding, encouraging, and assisting wherever necessary. Her voice was calm but authoritative. She did not shout. She did not demand. She inspired. Her presence reminded everyone that fear was an option, but courage was the path they had chosen. Taryn, the young man who had carried water and stabilized the generator, now assisted Lena in rebuilding the energy shields. Their movements were precise, their cooperation seamless. Valeth observed their teamwork closely. Each human seemed to anticipate the other's actions, completing tasks with minimal communication, yet flawless coordination. The alien historian could not help but compare this with other species she had studied. Most civilizations relied heavily on hierarchy, on obedience, on rigid structures to maintain order during crises. Humans relied on none of these. Their bravery came not from fear of punishment or the need to impress, but from an intrinsic desire to protect each other and survive together. Valeth's sensors picked up a pattern she had not anticipated. Even those who had been most frightened during the storm were now working with determination. A young child who had been crying moments before now helped carry small tools. A teenager who had sought shelter ran errands for the repair teams. Humans did not let fear paralyze them. Instead, they transformed it into purposeful action. She adjusted her observation focus and followed Amara as she approached the damaged energy hub. The generator, which had taken the brunt of the anomaly's surge, needed urgent repair. Amara quickly assessed the damage and organized a team of humans to stabilize it. Taryn and Lena were among them, joined by older and younger humans alike. Valith noted how humans divided labor efficiently. Each person had a role that matched their abilities, and every task, no matter how small, contributed to the larger goal. This sense of shared responsibility was unlike anything Valith had observed. It was bravery multiplied, collective, and selfless. The repairs were not easy. Sparks flew, panels shifted, and heavy machinery groaned under the stress. Yet the humans did not complain. They did not argue. They simply worked, each action purposeful and precise. Valith realized that bravery in the human sense was not a momentary act. It was a continuous choice, to rebuild after destruction, to face uncertainty with resolve, to protect others even when personal risk was high. As the generator hummed back to life, restoring power to the shields, a cheer broke out among the humans. But it was not a triumphant, boastful cheer. It was relief, shared quietly among those who had faced danger together. It was the sound of people who had endured fear and emerged stronger. Valith observed quietly, trying to understand the depth of human courage. She had seen battles, wars, and disasters across the galaxy. Many species performed acts that were impressive on the surface, but these humans were different. Their bravery was not about strength or skill alone. It was about choice, sacrifice, and unwavering dedication to one another. She followed the humans as they continued their work. Tents and shelters were rebuilt. Food stores were checked and replenished. Water supplies were verified. Every task, no matter how mundane, was handled with care and attention. Valith realized that bravery was not only shown in moments of danger, but also in the persistence to restore what had been threatened. A small group of humans, led by an elderly woman, gathered children to teach them lessons from the storm. They shared stories of what had happened, emphasizing the importance of helping one another, staying calm, and acting when necessary. Valith listened closely. These were not tales of glory or exaggeration. They were lessons, grounded in reality, designed to inspire courage and cooperation. The alien historian felt a growing admiration she could no longer hide. She had come to observe a species she believed to be weak, ordinary, and exaggerated in myth. Instead, she had discovered a civilization capable of extraordinary bravery through unity, intelligence, and care. Valith descended closer to the outpost, careful to remain unseen. She wanted to see the humans up close, to study the way they interacted in moments of calm after crisis. What she observed surprised her even more. There was no arrogance, no boastfulness. The humans did not seek recognition. They helped each other because it was the right thing to do. Their courage was quiet, humble, and profound. Taryn approached Amara with a report on the shields. Lena added her observations. Amara nodded, acknowledged their input, and made a few adjustments. The decisions were collaborative, yet decisive. Humans did not rely on a single leader to dictate action. They relied on shared understanding, trust, and collective decision-making. Valith felt a stirring in her consciousness. She had believed bravery could be measured by strength, by skill, by weaponry. These humans proved her wrong. Bravery was not a statistic. It was a choice. It was a mindset. It was the willingness to face fear, protect others, and act when it mattered most. As night fell over the settlement, the humans gathered for a quiet moment. Fires glowed softly, casting warm light across the repaired shelters. They shared stories, comforted the frightened, and prepared for the next day. Valith noted how even after surviving a cosmic storm, humans maintained their composure and care for one another. Their courage was enduring, not fleeting. Valith recorded every detail. She knew that her report to the Galactic Council would need to be rewritten. She could no longer present humans as fragile or ordinary. They were exceptional, not in ways her species had considered, but in ways that mattered most: resilience, courage, and selfless cooperation. She followed Amara one last time for the night. The leader stood on a small hill overlooking the outpost. Her eyes reflected the soft glow of fires and repaired structures. Valith could sense the weight of responsibility, yet there was no fear in Amara's posture, only determination, only courage. Valith whispered to herself, almost in awe, "This is bravery, the kind that changes everything." The humans of Outpost Meridian had endured the storm. They had protected their own, repaired their home, and maintained their community. They had not sought glory, but they had demonstrated a truth that Valith could not ignore. Bravery was not about power. It was about choice. Choice to act when fear beckoned. Choice to protect others even at risk to oneself. Choice to endure, rebuild, and persevere. Valith realized that she had underestimated humanity for centuries. Not because they were weak, but because their strength was quiet, collective, and impossible to quantify in the usual ways. The galaxy had measured civilizations by their size, weapons, and speed, but humans had shown that true strength lay in courage, compassion, and unity. As the night deepened, Valith reflected on what she had witnessed. The storm had tested the humans, and they had passed not by sheer force, but by persistence, intelligence, and unwavering bravery. Every human had contributed, no matter how small the action, and together their bravery had become unstoppable. She knew that this was only the beginning. The anomaly had passed for now, but the galaxy was full of unknown challenges. Humans would face them as they had faced this, together calmly and with courage that was quiet but undeniable. Valith made a note in her log, "Human bravery is not myth, it is real. It is measurable not in strength, but in choice, cooperation, and endurance. It is a force that the galaxy has overlooked for too long." And for the first time in her life, Valith felt hope, not just for the humans, but for the future of the galaxy itself. Because if ordinary beings could stand against a cosmic force and endure, perhaps legends were not exaggerations at all. Perhaps humanity had always been extraordinary, and perhaps the galaxy was only beginning to understand it. The anomaly had finally passed beyond the reach of Outpost Meridian, leaving the humans with a settlement that was bruised but unbroken. Valith, hovering in her vessel above the planet, had watched every moment of their survival, every act of bravery, every small but vital choice that kept them alive. She had come to observe humans with skepticism. She had come to mock legends. She had expected to find ordinary beings struggling against forces they could never overcome. Instead, she had witnessed something extraordinary. The humans were rebuilding, yes, but they did so with calm efficiency and quiet pride. Each action, each choice, each moment of care was an affirmation of something Valith had never fully understood until now. True courage is not measured by physical strength or grand displays. It is measured by the choices we make when the stakes are highest. Amara walked through the outpost, checking on each team. Taryn and Lena were coordinating repairs to the energy shield, while other humans organized debris into useful materials. Children gathered around older humans, learning lessons of cooperation, preparation, and courage through example. Even small animals played their part, alerting humans to hazards or carrying lightweight items. Valith observed silently, amazed at the quiet efficiency of their world. The outpost was more than a settlement. It was a living system of bravery where each individual contributed to the whole and every action mattered. She had expected fear. She had expected chaos. But humans were not afraid. They were cautious, yes, aware of the dangers, but fear did not control them. Their bravery had emerged not because they were invincible, but because they chose to act when it was hardest to act. As the sun rose over the battered landscape, Valith's sensors detected the first signs of interstellar communication. Nearby species, alerted to the anomaly, were slowly returning to their own systems, sending probes and ships to assess the damage. Many species were unaware that Outpost Meridian had survived where others had failed. Valith made a decision. She would leave her vessel hidden and approach the humans directly. She had studied them long enough. She had observed enough. It was time to see them up close. Descending carefully, she landed in a clearing near the central hub. Humans froze momentarily, but when they saw no immediate threat, they resumed their work without hesitation. There was no panic, no alarm, no distrust. They were calm, steady, and focused. Valith stepped forward, revealing herself. Her appearance was unlike anything the humans had ever seen, tall, elegant, with glowing eyes and iridescent skin. Yet there was no fear. They studied her with curiosity, not hostility. Amara approached, her gaze steady and unflinching. "You are observing us?" she asked. Valeth nodded. "I am Valeth, historian of Zyphora. I came to study humans, expecting myths, exaggerations, and failures. What I have seen is beyond anything I imagined." Amara's expression remained calm. "Humans do what they must." "That is all?" Valeth shook her head, a rare gesture for her species. "No, you have done more than survive. You have demonstrated courage in a way the galaxy has never measured. You have turned choice into action, fear into determination, and cooperation into a force stronger than the anomaly itself. You have made legends come alive." Terran stepped forward. "We didn't think of it that way. We just helped each other. That's what we do." Valeth smiled inwardly. That was precisely the point. Humans did not act for glory. They acted because it was right. Because survival alone was not enough, the choice to protect, to endure, to rebuild, to care for one another, that was what defined them. Amara studied Valeth quietly. "Legends, myths, perhaps, but the storm reminded us that our stories matter, not because they make us famous, but because they remind us of who we are and what we can do when it matters." Valeth realized then that this was the essence of humanity. Not the exaggeration of tales, not the glorification of heroics, but the truth beneath them. Humans were brave because they had to be. They were brave because they chose to be. They were brave because bravery is a choice, not a gift. Over the next hours, Valeth observed as humans continued their work, repairing and improving the settlement. The outpost was far from perfect, but it was stronger than before. Systems were reinforced, energy supplies secured, and defenses improved. The humans worked together seamlessly, each person's action complementing the next. Nearby, scouts reported the anomaly moving further into the galaxy. Other species, who had fled in fear, began to take notice of the humans' endurance. Some sent messages of curiosity, others of respect. Slowly, word spread. The humans had survived what no one else had, not by force, but by courage, intelligence, and unity. Valeth recorded everything, knowing that her report would redefine humanity for the galaxy. She would not describe humans as weak, ordinary, or fragile. She would describe them as what they truly were: a species capable of extraordinary bravery, quiet but undeniable, a force of resilience and courage unlike any other. As evening fell, Valeth joined the humans at the central hub. She watched as they shared food, stories, and laughter. There were no celebrations of heroism, no boastful tales. Only quiet satisfaction, the comfort of survival, and the bonds of shared struggle. Valeth felt a warmth in her consciousness that she had never felt before. The humans had not only survived, they had reminded her, a seasoned observer of the galaxy, what true courage looked like. It was not always loud or grand. It did not always involve spectacular feats. Sometimes bravery was simply choosing to stand when escape was easier, to help when survival was uncertain, and to endure when hope seemed fragile. Amara approached Valeth and placed a hand gently on her arm. "You have seen us at our best and our worst. Now you know the truth. Human bravery is real, and it does not need embellishment to be extraordinary." Valeth nodded. She understood. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for centuries, but she could no longer allow such misunderstanding to continue. Humans were not legends because of myths. They were legends because their choices, their courage, and their unity had made them so. In the weeks that followed, Valeth prepared her report. She wrote not just as a historian, but as a witness to living legend. She documented every detail, every act of bravery, every moment of quiet courage. She included descriptions of children helping adults, adults protecting the vulnerable, and the seamless cooperation that allowed humans to endure the anomaly. When she finally submitted the report to the Galactic Council, it was received with astonishment. Species who had once dismissed humans as weak now regarded them with curiosity and respect. The legends that Valeth had once mocked were no longer myths. They were history, alive and verifiable, and humanity's place in the galaxy began to change. Valeth returned to Outpost Meridian one last time before leaving the system. She observed humans as they went about their daily routines, helping one another, repairing and teaching the next generation. Their bravery was not loud or showy, but it was unmistakable. Before departing, Valeth approached Amara once more. "You have shown me what legend truly means. Not for fame, not for glory, but for the courage to act, the wisdom to endure, and the choice to protect. Humanity is extraordinary." Amara smiled, quiet and modest. We do what we must, that is enough. Valith looked back at the outpost, at the humans who had survived the impossible, and felt a sense of awe she had never known. The legends were true. The bravery was real. The galaxy had been reminded of a truth it had forgotten. Courage is not measured in size or strength, but in the heart, in the choices we make, and in the unity we show when it is needed most. And as Valith departed into the stars, she knew one thing for certain. Humanity had lived up to its legends. The stories were no longer tales, they were proof. Proof of bravery, proof of choice, proof of extraordinary resilience. The galaxy would remember. And Valith would never forget. For in the quiet settlement of Outpost Meridian, she had witnessed a truth that would endure through all time. Human bravery was real. It was quiet, humble, and unstoppable, and it had changed everything.